so we're going to go ahead and get started on one of my favorite things to do is bezeling. I love to bezel. It's weird. It's also very awkward when you first start off with, but it is a lot of fun once you kind of get the knack of it. So we are going to be bezeling today a 14 millimeter Swarovski's rivoli. And for me, I've been doing 34 Delicas. Now that can vary, and there are multiple reasons for the reason why. The two most common is your batch size of your Delicas, because they can vary from batch to batch, especially. In addition to that, another thing that can also have a huge impact is also your tension. I tend to be on the tighter side, and that might have an impact. And also, like I said, batch size of your Delicas. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's thread our needle up with approximately, I would say, a total of 10 to 12 inches of thread. And you will want, you don't have to put on a stop bead, you can if you want, but you will need approximately, I would say, 4 inches on one side for your tail and 6 inches on the other side. All right, I'll see you back here in just a moment. So just so you know, what I did is, because I know I'm gonna be using 34 Delicas, 11-0 Delicas, I already have my Delicas put out, and just to avoid any potential miscount is what I usually do, because I do know with peyote I have to do it in pairs of two. So I group in pairs of two of in each row 5 groups, so that's 10 Delicas per row. And then so here I have 10, 20, 30, and then the final 34. And I do that to make my life a little easier. And it doesn't hurt to count as you go along, just to make sure there wasn't any miscount. And it just helps you from making, a simple human error. That was 10. And that's 20. All right, and that's 30. Move this off to the side. And that is 34. And all we're going to do is we're going to leave about 4 inches for tail. Slide this down. And we're just going to create a circle by going through that seed bead that we previously went through. Let me just get a little closer. Get a little bit more light, and just go through the first seed bead. There we go. All right, that's how you get started. Okay, now that we got our first round of seed beads on and we created a circle, we are ready to start the peyote stitch. And what the peyote stitch is, you're going to skip every other bead. So right now we are coming from this seed bead, so we will pick up a bead, skip this bead, and then have our thread go through here. And what that will do is it will have the seed bead that we just added sit on top of this seed bead that we skipped. And we'll do that every other bead as we go around, and that's the peyote stitch. So let's go ahead and pick up one seed bead, skip a bead, go through the next bead, and it will feel very awkward getting started. Hold the thread, and then just make sure that the bead we picked up sits on top or by the side of the seed bead that we skipped. There we go. Now we're ready to go ahead and pick up our next seed bead. Skip one seed bead, go through the next. There we go. There. You'll have to start off by manipulating, but as we go along, it'll just start falling into place. There we go. There we go. All right, so we'll pick up one more seed bead, skip, go through the next, and just keep on going and just kind of work your way around. Now if you are uncomfortable doing this freehand, you can get like a ring mandrel. You can get something roughly about the same size of the hole and do it that way. It's up to you. I usually do it for the larger stones. I use my ring mandrel. But for the smaller ones, I usually use just my fingers. It's what you're comfortable with at the end of the day. There we go. See, it's getting a little bit easier. And what I usually do is, because I do have an issue with being too tight on my tension, so I just kind of loosen it up a little bit without making it too loose. Because you do need tension. But you don't want it to be too tight right off the bat, because then it'll cause your beads to bunch up. All right. And you know what? I think that's a toho that got into my seed bead, so I'm going to take that off. All right, so this will be the last bead. So we'll skip one bead right here, go through here, there we go. Now we'll go through the same bead that we went through, added the first time around. There we go. And now we're ready to do our step up. And our step up is basically, we're going to be putting a 15-0. We're going to skip every other bead. So our 15-0s are going to basically lie in the notch that we previously skipped. So we're going to pick up a 15-0 round seed bead, go through the next seed bead, because we're skipping in the notch, and just gently pull. And don't worry, as you go along it will tighten. This is where I kind of like to bring down it on the finger a little bit, so I'm not holding it too tight or keeping it And you just go through every other, you pick up a seed bead and go through every other bead. Basically, your seed bead that you're picking up will actually lie in the notch created from the previous round. So go ahead and do that all the way around, and then I'll meet you back to do another step up. All right, so I have one more bead to add, and as you can see, my embezzlement's actually coming to better shape. It looked a little wonky at first, but you know, as I was going along, I was able to shape it and get it back into shape. So what we're going to do is just go through like we normally would, the sticking out bead, but then we'll go ahead and go through that previous 15-0. And now for the next row, we're going to again, same principle, skip every other bead, and our 15-0 is going to fit perfectly in that notch. So whenever you're adding a new row, your beads are going to fit in the previous notch. So just go ahead, do the same thing as before. Just slide that bead in, and this is, you know, so your 15-0s will just fit in perfectly in those little notches. Because these are slightly smaller beads, what you're doing is you're just making the circumference a little bit smaller, and that will hold the stone in. That's the basic principle for the whole thing. That's why you start off with 11-0s and end up with 15-0s. The same, I mean, you could technically do this with any size beads. You know, like you could start off with 8-0s and then wind up with 11-0s. You just have to adjust the size and numbers of beads. But the smaller beads will create a smaller circumference, and so that you can pull things in. Whoops. There we go. There. And just kind of make sure it just works. There we go. So as I tug, it creates that. Make sure it's sitting on that previous spot. All right. So just keep on going, and once you get to the other side, I will show you what to do for this. We're going to not do another step up. We'll make that judgment call after we get our stone in. So this will be the last step up for this side of the bezel, and then we'll get started on the other side. So once you're done with this, I'll meet you back before you finish a couple of beads beforehand, and then we'll get started on the other side. Alright, so I just have a few more seed beads to finish up on this side. One thing I like to do with my bezels is I do like to use contrasting colors. I think it adds a little bit of depth, it adds a little bit of feel of texture, and it makes life a little bit easier as well. So here's my last seed bead. So I'm going to go through this seed bead, and then where I had previously stepped up, I'm going to go through this seed bead. So if I wanted to, I could do one more round. However, I'm guessing that most likely I won't need to, so I'm going to hold off and just see before I do. If you want to just take a quick peek and see how things are working, you can see. And the thing I've learned is that once you start putting things on and then you reinforce it, whoops, let me show you. There we go. So here's the front of the bezel. And if we want to just kind of a quick peek to see how things are going, There you can see you can see that it's already starting to fit. And what'll happen is when we put the backing on, it'll pull things a little tighter. And then when we reinforce our seed beads on this bezel, that will also tighten it up. So that way, most likely, we won't need to put anything on the front. All right, so let's go ahead and do the back. You can either leave your needle on one side and get another needle and put it on the other end of the thread, or you can take off your needle and put it on the other thread. So meet me back here with thread and needle on your tail. All right, so we're on the back side, and my tail of the thread from when we got started is coming out of this bead, and I want it to come through this bead. So it's just like stepping up. So you're just gonna go ahead, go through that bead, and then pick up your 15-ohs, and they're gonna be fitting in. And before you do that, go ahead and hold your rivoli in, and I'll help shape the bezel as you work. It won't fit, so you gotta hold it in place to start off with, but it will help with the shape of the bead, the bezel. If I can speak. Sorry, my mind is elsewhere. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, pick up a 15-oh, and just do what I did before. And you just kind of want to hold the bezel in place. Like I said, it'll just help shape everything as you go along. And you're going to do this at least 2 times, if not more, in the back. So you'll step up just like you did in the front. So meet me back here about when you're ready to step up, and we'll step up together, okay? Just hang in there. And again, like I said, everything will come together, I promise. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pick up our last seed bead, and just like the other side, go through and then go through the first bead that we stepped up previously. And it might help if I put on a seed bead. Way too funny. All right, so just like before, you're going to pick up your final seed bead, go through that last seed bead, and go ahead and go through the next, that very first seed bead that you stepped up previously. All right, pull it together, hold your bezel in place, and just like before, we're going to go ahead, pick up a seed bead, have it fit into the notch, go through the following seed bead. Whoops. There we go. Wrong bead. There we go. And sometimes you just have to play with it so that it fits in the notch properly. All right, and then you just keep going, and eventually, you know, you're not going to have to hang on to the rivoli. That will come when you hit that little sweet spot. It will happen before you get to the very end. And then meet me back here, and we will finish up on this side, and then we'll reinforce our stitches. Well, we'll determine whether or not we need to put on any more, if we need to step up any more than we currently have. So go ahead, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, so I just got a couple of more beads to do. on this side. And there we go. Now again, just like the other side, I do like to always end my initial round by doing the step up. I suppose you really don't have to do that. It's just something I like to do for consistency. Now, here's the thing is, it's up to you. It's about preferences and so forth. If you want, you could do one more round on the back. You could also do one more round in the front. It's all up to you. I think my bezel is holding this stone in very well. And I know that when I go through the reinforcement, it's just going to make everything just a little bit tighter. And it's just going to sit in there very, very solidly. So I'm going to leave it without adding any more. But it's a preference thing. You know, so if you want to, you could just do the same thing what we did now. And then if you want, you could also do it on the front. It's just a preference thing. So if you're going to go ahead and do that, and then meet us back when you're done on both sides, if you're adding on both sides. And by the way, you don't have to do equal amounts on both sides. If you just want to do an extra round in the back, you can do that. If you just want to do an extra round in the front, you can do that. If you want to do it on both sides, you can do that as well. So if you're going to go ahead and do that now, and then meet us back here when you're done, and then I'll walk you through on what I like to do for reinforcement. And when you do that, go ahead and if you took your needle off your front thread, go ahead and put it back on and meet us back here when you're done. All right, so let me just show that to you a few more times here. I go through the center bead spine straight through. And then I take the pair, and I go up one. Down the other side. And then up again. And then again. And I just keep repeating myself over and over again until I go all the way around. And then if I have enough thread, I start reinforcing the other rows. So go ahead and go all the way around. Meet me back here, and if you have more thread, I'll show you what to do next. All right, so you've reinforced the spine, and if you have extra thread, what we're going to do now is we're going to, since this is the front thread and we still have plenty of room on our back thread, we'll do the back later. But we'll move on to our front thread, and you're going to do the same thing what we're going to do now on the back as we're going to do on the front. So you've already done the spine. So what we're going to do is just make our way down to the last row. If you did 2. If you did 3, you want to do the center 15-ohs. And what we're going to do is very similar, what we're going to do is very similar to what we did with the spine. So here, I'm just going to tighten up and connect the spine with the 15-ohs in the same manner. So we'll connect that. We'll treat the first row of the 15-ohs as like we did with the center spine, and just go through there. And, you know, just go up through a Delica and then down a 15-0. And it doesn't matter which one you do first. And what this will do is it'll just give it a little extra strength, and then bring everything together. So like for example, this 15-0 I'll connect with the 11-0 Delica, and that'll just tighten things up a little bit and add a few extra strengths. And just go all the way around, and then go ahead and burn off your thread or cut off your thread. And you don't have to worry about doing any knots, because you're basically what you've been doing throughout this process. During the reinforcement, if you follow my recommendations, you are already going in different directions constantly. You may want to go past where you started, just so that way you reinforced everything. And again, you can take your needle and just mark where you were beforehand, and so that way you know where you left off. All right, and then you do the same thing for the back. Just thread your thread down the back, and you do the same thing. And if you did 3, then you know, just go through that last row real quick, reinforce it, and you're in good shape. Alright, so go ahead and thread your needle with a 6-pound Vitaline or Wildfire. I am using Smoke. I do recommend, if you're doing dark colors, to use black satin. I'm just simply out. And if you're doing light colors, go ahead and use Crystal. Put on a stop bead and leave about 4 to 6 inches tail. And we will get started with this with adding our first 3 units of right angle weave on our first side. So let's go ahead and pick up 4 round 11-0 seed beads. There we go. So we have 4. There we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and slide those down to the end. And then, since this is my first unit, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that. So I'm going to go through all 4 seed beads again. And then, for my first unit, I'm going to go through that first seed bead, and that would be for a 3rd time since I reinforced it. If you're not forcing it, just go through it 2 times. There we go. And there's our first unit. Now what we're going to do, instead of having our seed bead completely to the opposite, we are going to go ahead and go through that second unit. And the reason why is I do want to do my units going in this direction here. It's a matter of preference. You don't have to do that. It's just something I recommend. So we're going to go ahead and go through the second bead, so that way we're coming out of that bead that I want to go in the correct direction of the line. Alright, and keep in mind, things might get a little wonky as you go along. However, reinforcing that first unit does help, and as we get all the units on, it will all come together. So So just hold things into place and don't worry if it looks a little wonky. Now we're going to pick up 3 more round seed beads because our unit already has 1. So we're going to go ahead, put our needle in, so that way when it's coming out in the same direction as the thread. There we go. And I'm not going to worry about reinforcing that unit simply because it will get reinforced later. And a couple of reasons why I did the first unit: it helps stabilizes it as you start off, as well as it just gives it a little bit more form. Makes it a little easier to work with. Alright, now we're going to put on our second unit, and we want to go in this direction this way. So I want to get to this seed bead right here. So I'm going to go ahead, go through this bead, then go through this bead. So that way I'm coming out of the bead I want. So let's go ahead, go through that first seed bead to get to where we want. And you may have to, just gently tug. My major issue that I'm working on is sometimes my tension's a little too tight. So I need to practice that and work on that. There we go. So we're through this seed bead. Now we still need to get through this seed bead. And just take your time. And it seems like it's tedious to go through one seed bead, but really it pays off and it helps you keep your beads laying correctly. And I just hold my beads in place as I'm just pulling, gently tugging on that thread. Alright, so we're in the correct direction. Now we want to add our third right angle weave. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to pick up 3 seed beads, put our needle through our needle so that it's going the same direction as the thread, and then just gently pull. And if you just kind of hold your thumb gently, things will fall into place. Whoops, as I speak that something tugged. There we go, I had a little kink. And just listen to your thread, or feel your thread, It will let you know if something's wrong. And if you catch it before it becomes an issue, it's so much easier. Alright, so we got our third unit on. What we're going to do next is we are going to reinforce this unit. Then we are going to move on down to here so we can put on our first Tila bead unit. So let's go ahead, reinforce our unit just because it's the last unit for this side. Whoops, let me go ahead, roll that. And again, things will fall back into place, so don't panic if things come out undone a little bit. And again, just be very gentle as you move along and have fun and relax. There we go. And again, I'm just going through one bead at a time just to help protect that, make sure the beads stay laying in the way I want them to lay. You can, but things do tend to bunch up otherwise. Alright, as you can see, it's a little out of order, but we'll get it back in order here in just a moment. So I'm just reinforcing. And thanks for being patient. I'm not used to doing this on camera, and so I feel fairly awkward. So bear with me. I do appreciate it. Alright, as you can see, things are a little out of awkward, but now they'll come back into shape. Just holding the beads in place as I pull my thread. And I think I may have mentioned how long you want your thread. You want your thread to be on when you put it on your needle, you want a whole wingspan, I would say. But work with whatever you're comfortable with. Don't make it too long because we are going to be adding thread throughout this project. All right, so we're now down in between our first and second unit. You just pull this. And this is why you need the flat nose pliers. There we go. And voila. So we have our first 3 units on. So we got, let's just go over what we have here. We have our first, there we go. Whoops, let me just fix this a little bit. There we go. And things will fall into place. Don't worry if they're a little wonky at the moment. There we go. And so we have our first unit, our second unit, and our third unit. We went back down to between our first and second unit, and now we're going to do is put on our first unit of Tila beads. So let's go ahead and get those out. Alright, so we are going to put on our first unit of Tila beads. So we are coming up, we're in between the first and second unit of our first right angle weave unit. We will pick up 1 11/0 Delica and go through our first hole of our Tila bead. Slide that down. There we go. Ah, it feels awkward doing it on the camera. Alright, so then we pick up 1 more 11/0 Delica. And I suppose you could have just done the 11/0 Delica and the Tila bead, but I was being silly. Alright, so now we got our first 11/0 Delica. Now what we're going to do is we are going to build 3 right angle weave units on the other side, just like we did with the first. Alright, so let's go ahead and do our second unit of right angle weave. So let's bring back our 11/0 rounds. We're going to pick up 4 11/0 round beads, just like we did the other side. Slide those down. And just like the other side, we're going to go ahead and reinforce those 11/0 rounds, our first unit. So go ahead and go through all 4 beads again. Again, this is optional, but it does help with creating that form to start off with. There we go. And then, if you are reinforcing, go through that first 11/0 round a 3rd time, and if you're not reinforcing, it would be the 2nd time. So go ahead and do that, and just be very gentle. And things will come into place. And you may have to manipulate and pull on the thread here and there and loosen it, so that way it's up against that Delica and things are fitting nicely. You don't want things too tight, but you do want things to fit nicely together. Alright, now we have our first unit. Now we just have to put on our next 2 units. So we're going to go ahead and pick up 3 more 11/0 seed beads, and we're coming out of the correct hole, so we can go ahead and just go through that first unit. There we go. Now we're not coming out of the correct hole. We want to be coming out of this hole up here, this bead. So we're going to work our way up 1 bead at a time. There we go. You just have to think of which direction you want to go and what bead you want to come out of. And that's all you have to figure out when figuring this out. Alright. And things are a little wonky, but they will come into place. There we go. So now we just need to put on our next unit. So let's go ahead and grab 3 more 11 seed beads. And just remember to go ahead and put your needle through the hole, so that way the needle and thread are going in the same direction. There we go. I like to put my needle down and just use my fingers to gently pull that thread. And now we got our 3rd unit. Let's go ahead and reinforce that unit. It just helps stabilizes as you go along. So we're going to go ahead and go through each, and just, you know, you don't want to just keep pulling if you get a knot or something. You want to prevent a knot from happening. So just be gentle. There we go. Get the kink out of the way. I find that if you just kind of smooth the thread over with your fingers afterwards, it helps prevent another issue arising and you get the kink out before it becomes an issue. So we're just going through, sorry for being off camera, but I'm just going through each seed bead again until I get to right here. And that way I'm facing in the correct direction. So just to show you where I'm winding up. Whoops. This is a lot harder to do on screen. There we go, just to show you. So I'm in the 2nd unit. Between the 2nd and 3rd unit, I'm facing towards where the Tila bead is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a Delica, go through the 2nd hole, pick up a Delica, and then on the other side go through the right angle weave between the 2nd and 3rd unit. So let's go ahead, and things are just a little out of whack at first, because this is our 1st unit. There we go. Let's go ahead, pick up our Delica, go through the 2nd hole, come through that 2nd hole. Don't go into the other unit yet, because we got to put on another Delica first. There we go. Just do a gentle tug and see it's starting to come together. As we get a couple more units on, it really will start fitting together. Go ahead, pick up another Delica, and then go through the seed bead hole that is between the 2nd and 3rd unit. You're going to see how this will just bring it together. There. See? So we got our 1st unit on, and that's really the toughest part, is just getting started. And anyone who's done any of this before realizes that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 more onto this side. Go back down to here. So between our last unit from the 1st Tila bead to the unit that's connecting to the 2nd Tila bead, we'll be going between those 2 units. Come over here, connect our Tila bead unit, which will be a Delica, Tila bead, Delica, and then the other unit, and make 2. And we'll just go back and forth, and each time we go to the other side, we'll be adding 2 right angle weave units. So let's go ahead, we'll do a few more and then I'll let you guys off on your own. So let's go ahead and put on our 2 additional right angle weave units. So when we're looking at this, we're going in this direction here. So we need to get to this top bead. So we're just going to follow the thread path up to this bead here. So we're coming out of that bead. So go ahead, just go gentle. There we go. And we're now through the correct bead. So after we go through here, we're going to pick up, since we have our first unit of bead, we just need to pick up 3 each time now. So let's go ahead and pick up 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Move these out of the way. And let's go ahead and slide on 3. Whoops, I almost have a knot here. I thought I couldn't see there. There we go. I accidentally put my needle through, so it would have been an overhanded knot. Alright, so that's our first unit. Now we need to put on the second unit, and we need to be coming out of this bead here. So we're just going to work our way up. Alright, now we're coming out of the correct bead. We just have to put on our next unit, so we're going to add 3 more. There we go. There we go. Now we're coming, we got our last unit on. Now we're going to put on our next Tila unit. So we need to get down to this seed bead here. And so we're just going to go ahead, work our way down, following the thread path that's already there, not creating a new one. And we're going in the direction we want because we have to connect to the other side. Alright. Alright, so now that we got those 2 sides on, we're going to put on our second unit. And if you're trying to figure out what seed bead you need to be coming out of next to put on your next Tila bead, just keep in mind these units, you're going to have a Tila bead connected to it. So this one will have the first hole, this will have the second hole. So when you're looking at putting on your next Tila bead, just it'll be the very whole unit, that the beginning of a unit that doesn't have a connection. So for our next Tila bead, and alright, let's put on our second unit, Tila unit. So we are going to pick up 1 Tila bead, pardon my language, 1 Delica, 1 Tila bead through the first hole, and then 1 Delica. Slide that on. Alright, and it's easy to figure out where we need to be on the other side. We just go through the very top bead. of our last right angle weave unit on the other side. So go ahead and slide that on. There we go. Now before we connect the second hole, we are going to put on 2 right angle weaves on this side, and we'll just basically be doing that back and forth. So go ahead, pick up 3 more seed beads and go through that top of that last right angle weave unit. Put on your first additional right angle weave unit. Now we need to make sure we're over here, so we're going to just go ahead, follow the thread path, and just think of the thread path as a road map. You don't want to go through your seed beads that you're not following the current thread path, because what will happen is your beads can go out of whack in the way they're supposed to align. Alright, that's our first unit, so we're going to go ahead, pick up 3 more seed beads and create that second unit. There we go. This is just a little awkward just because I'm used to pulling things towards my body and the camera is in the way. Now we want to go ahead and connect the second hole. So we're going to go, whoops, let's just put that over there. Pick up 1 Delica, go through the second hole, pull your thread and needle, then pick up 1 Delica, and to determine what hole you want to go through the first seed bead that is connecting the right angle weave units that doesn't have a connection. So this here, whoops, let me just put my needle through, and as you can see, oops, here we go. And as you can see, we're going there. Let me just pull it through and then I'll show you. It'll be easier that way. Because then things will be back in alignment. Alright, so as you see, each connection of the right angle weave will have a connection to a Tila bead, either a first or second hole. And this was the first connection of the right angle weave units that did not have that connection. And right now it feels a little out of whack, but again, as we move along, it will just fall into place. So we're going to get ready for our third unit. So to do that, we need to put on 2 more right angle weaves on this side. And since we're coming out of here, and we want to be coming out of here to put on the next right angle weave unit, we're just going to follow our thread path and get our needle up to where we want it. There we go. And there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and put on 2 additional right weave angles, also known as raw. There we go. And now that we got our first unit on, we need to be moving up to this seed bead and be coming out of here. So we're just going to follow our thread path till we get there. There we go. I just have to hold this a little funny just because of the camera. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and pick up 3 more seed beads. create our second unit on this side. Now we want to go back down, and we want to be coming out of the unit, the first unit, facing towards the Tila beads that does not have a connection to a Tila unit. So we want to go through here. So we're going to just follow the thread path to get down there, one seed bead at a time. There we go. And now we are down, and we're ready to put on our third unit. Alright, so go ahead, pick up a Delica. Oops, pick up a Delica, a Tila, and a Delica. And then go through the very top of your next right angle weave unit. Ta-da! Alright, I'm sure you guys understand the process now, but I'm going to do 2 more units here just to be on the safe side to make it easier for you. So we'll finish up this unit and then we'll do 2 more. So again, on this side, we're going to do 2 right angle weave units again. I am coming out of the correct seed bead, so I'm just going to go ahead and add my first right angle weave unit. And we know I'm going a little quicker now, but we know that's going to be 3 seed beads. Then I'm just going to follow my thread path to get to, whoops, the seed bead that I want. And again, that will be just so I can continue to go in that linear direction for the right angle weave. And I'm just going to go a little faster here, just because we've gone through this a few times now. There we go. See, I'm coming out of the top seed bead that I want. Go ahead and add on my next 3 seed beads for the first unit. Then, because I'm not coming out of the direction, the seed bead I want, I need to move up to get to that seed bead that I want to come out of. It's a little awkward on the camera, so bear with me. There we go. And there. So I'm now coming out of the top seed bead. Go ahead and pick up 3 more. There we go. Now I want to connect the second hole of the third unit, Tila bead unit. So I want to, this is the first connection unit of the right angle weaves that does not have a Tila connection, so I want to get down to here. So I'm just going to go 1 seed bead at a time and follow the thread path. Make sure I'm coming out of the correct bead and heading in the correct direction. So my thread's coming out of the correct direction. I'm out of the correct hole seed bead. So now I can just go ahead, pick up a Delica, go through the second hole of the Tila bead, connect that unit, then pick up 1 more Delica, and go through on the right angle weave on the other side, the first right angle weave connection that does not have a connection to a Tila bead, so that would be down here. There we go. Now to put on my fourth unit, I need to make 2 right angle weaves going up. Alright, now before I can make my fourth Tila bead connection, I'm going to make 2 more right angle weaves on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up 3 seed bead. Oops, I skipped. I need to be coming out of the correct seed bead. So I'm just going to follow my thread path and move up. There we go, coming out of the correct seed bead, picking up 3 seed beads. There we go. Made my first unit. Now I need to go up, so I'm coming out of the correct seed bead again for the second unit. Oops, I just gotta remember to stay in the camera focus. Sorry about that. There we go. Alright. Now I'm coming out of the correct seed bead. And for the second unit, just picking up 3 seed beads. There we go, second unit's on. Now to go ahead and connect up the next, the fourth unit. So I need to go down to the first connection that doesn't have a connection to a Tila unit. So I'm just gonna follow the thread path. There we go. So now I can pick up a Delica, a Tila bead. I always like the first whole connection. You can just do the whole unit at once. And then a Delica. Slide that down. Connect to your other side. I think I may have made a right angle weave extra. Not the end of the world if you do. Alright. Now I can go ahead, add 2 units over to the other side. Right angle weave units. And the reason why I'm not just simply connecting here is that you always want to be a couple of right angle weaves ahead. And if you accidentally make 3 versus 2, it's not the end of the world. It just keeps you ahead, that's all. And it makes it a little easier. There we go. Alright. And I'm picking up 3 more. Technically, you could do your right angle weaves all each side and then just add the Tila beads afterwards. But I kind of like going back and forth because you'll get the reinforcement naturally that way. And then it's easier to determine your length too by just doing it that way too. But you could do the other. Alright, so that's one unit. And then 2 units. And then look for where it should be coming out. Following the thread path to get to that bead. So here's the first right angle weave unit. There's no connection, so I'm going to go ahead, slide that through, and we're actually connecting the second hole. So after I get done with that, I'm just picking up a Delica, going through the second hole, picking up another Delica, and then looking for that first unit without a connection and connecting it there. There we go. So let's just take a look and see what we have so far. See? Alright, I'll do one more and then I'll let you guys go and let you finish up on your own, and you can make the second half of the band the same way. Alright, so let's just go up here and get to the thread path that we want. Pick up the beads, 3 beads. Make the first unit. Get up to the spot where I want to put on the second unit. Oops, sorry about that. It's really hard to see with this camera in front of me. Alright, now I'm going to pick up 3 more. And this is my second unit. So then I will put on the 5th Tila bead after this. So now I'm going to work my way down, 1 bead at a time. Oops, let me go back because I was out of... It's getting a little awkward to do this with the camera. Alright, so now I'm going to just work my way down. There we go, and I just got 1 more bead to go. And then I'll be in the correct path. Voila. So, Delica. Oops, let's get a Tila bead over here. There we go, Tila, Delica. Go through the first unit that has no connection onto the other side. Connecting, then working my way up so I can make 2 right angle weave units, always adding at least 2 or more units at a time. Oops. fix that. There we go. Now I'm coming out of the right hole, so I'll go ahead and put on my first right angle weave unit. Work my way up, so I'm coming out of the correct hole to put on the second unit. There we go. All right, putting on the second unit. Nice. Now I'll go down and go to the section that does the beginning of the unit that does not have a connection to a Tila bead, so I can connect the second hole. There we go. Pick up Delica. Connect the second hole of the Tila bead, go through, and pick up one more Delica, go through the connection on the other side that doesn't have a Tila bead connection, the first unit, and voila. Alright, so just a gentle reminder, if you're going to be adding the rivoli, we need 2 bands, so you're going to do half the size you would do for your wrist. Let me just get the bracelet out in front of us. There we go. So this is what we're doing. We'll have 2 band lengths on each side if you're connecting the rivoli. Keep a little extra room so we can add beads later on. So I would do it so that you maybe need to add 1 or 2 Tila bead units on each side. So stop like about here or here, depending, and then just you can figure out the length by keeping in mind you gotta, when you're thinking of the length, you gotta remember you're doing 2 of these. You got the rivoli in the center, and then also you got your clasp and jump ring or split ring as well to take configuration. So that's why I say it's easier to leave a little short, because then we can measure it around our wrist and then determine from there how long you want to make it. It makes it a little bit easier. So I have a fairly fat wrist, so mine is fairly long, and my wrist is about 7 inches, but depending on how long you want, just leave like enough room where you could possibly add 1 or 2 Tila beads more. It's fairly simple to add on after we attach the rivoli, which will make it so much easier to measure as we go along, and that's why I'm suggesting it. So keep going until you got your first band width, then just repeat this process to make your second, I said band width, I meant band length, the other half. And then meet me back here and we'll attach the rivoli and then do our embellishment, and then we'll, it'll be easier to test the length of what you need, and then I'll show you how to do and add the clasp. All right, see you in a few moments.